Hi, everybody, and welcome to A Story of Light, a musical journey in 19 days. Today is day 19. So, how did we get here? Well, the reason that we got here is all thanks to the man that is behind the camera. Antimo Kalipuka is the man who has made all this possible, doing these streams every single day for the past 19 days, and it is all thanks to him. So, Antimo, thank you for bringing us this far. But as I mentioned yesterday, I'm actually today is not actually the last day, because in order to bring our story to a close, I'm going to do one final episode, and that will be tomorrow. So there will actually be a 20th day to this 19-day musical journey. And actually today the sun has already set here in Dublin, which means that the 19-day fast is officially over, and it is now Nowruz. So to all of those of you who are watching in places where the sun has already set, I wish you a very happy Nowruz. And I hope that you will join me tomorrow for the day of Nowruz, when I'll do the final episode to bring a story of light to a close. It'll be at the same time tomorrow, and it's just we'll bring the story to a close tomorrow. But really, I'm so grateful to all of you for coming this far, and really especially grateful to Antimo for making this all possible. So I wanted to begin today's episode by picking up from yesterday's story of Abdul Baha's travels, and I wanted to share with you his farewell address that he gave to the Baha'is of America when he set sail from New York City in 1912. His journey across America was complete, and he was going to pass back through Europe in 1913, and he was going to make his way back to the Holy Land, where he would now live as a free man in Haifa, living under the shadow of the shrine of the Bab that he had built on Mount Carmel. And so this is a transcript of Abdul Baha's farewell address to the Baha'is of America. So, Antimo, can you just put up the first slide, please? And or actually, if you put up the two slides and maybe just change them as I'm reading. These are the days of my farewell to you, for I am sailing on the 5th of the month. Wherever I went in this country, I returned always to New York City. This is my 4th or 5th visit here, and now I am going away to the Orient. It will be difficult for me to visit this country again, except it be the will of God. I must therefore give you my instructions and exhortations today, and these are none other than the teachings of Baha'u'llah. You must manifest complete love and affection toward all mankind. Do not exalt yourselves above others, but consider all as your equals, recognizing them as the servants of one God. Know that God is compassionate toward all. Therefore, love all from the depths of your hearts. Be filled with love for every race, and be kind toward the people of all nationalities. Act in such a way that your heart may be free from hatred. If someone commits an error and wrong toward you, you must instantly forgive him. Turn all your thoughts towards bringing joy to hearts. Assist the world of humanity as much as possible. Be the source of consolation to every sad one. Assist every weak one. Be helpful to every indigent one. Care for every sick one. Be the cause of glorification to every lowly one. And shelter those who are overshadowed by fear. In brief, let each one of you be as a lamp shining forth with the light of the virtues of the world of humanity. And with that, Abdul Baha boarded a ship and sailed back across the Atlantic. And something that Abdul Baha was constantly doing throughout his travels and really throughout his life was directing people towards the writings of his father. Because, all those years ago, the Maid of Heaven had said to Baha'u'llah in his vision in the Black Pit, she had said to him that promise, verily we shall render thee victorious by thyself and by thy pen. It was through his pen, through his writings, through the word, through speech and expression, not through force or violence, that the world would be led to peace. And so Abdu'l-Baha was always directing people towards these writings of his father. And as patient as Abdu'l-Baha was, as he made his way around the Western world, he was also painfully aware of the prophetic warnings that his father had given to the rulers of the world about the consequences that they would bring upon themselves if they did not work together for peace. And in less than a year after Abdu'l-Baha had returned from his travels, World War I broke out, and it was the most devastating, massive war that the world had ever known. But back in the Holy Land, Abdu'l-Baha continued his work, and with the war raging all around him, Abdu'l-Baha quietly prepared to launch an initiative that would lay the foundations for the great universal peace that his father envisioned. And this initiative took the form of nothing more than a handful of postcards that he wrote and sent across the world to the Baha'is of North America. And now, just to give you a little bit of background about what was on those postcards, we need to just retrace our steps a little bit. So you might remember that way back in the early episodes of the story, I had tried to describe this kind of miracle of the Bab's writings, how these beautiful, profound, enlightening, poetic verses would pour out of him without any premeditation or hesitation, and without any of the words being changed once they were written. It was just like the flowing of a river. Well, something that astonished people even more than the writings of the Bab was the even greater creative power wielded by Baha'u'llah. And one Babi, way back in the early days in Baghdad, had once made the following remark. So Antimo, can you put up the next slide, please? I bear witness that the verses revealed by Baha'u'llah were superior in the rapidity with which they were penned, in the ease with which they flowed, in their lucidity, their profundity and sweetness, to those which I myself saw pour from the pen of the Bab when in his presence. Another observer once remarked that the verses that streamed from his lips averaged in a single day and night the equivalent of the Quran. But just like the Bab and like the founders of the great world religions before him, Baha'u'llah always asserted that he himself was merely the channel for these inspired verses, even stating in his tablet to the Shah of Persia, "This thing is not from me, but from one who is almighty and all-knowing." And so, over the past couple of weeks, I've shared with you a few examples of some of Baha'u'llah's writings that were having such an effect on the people wherever he went. And, it's probably kind of obvious from those examples that I've shared with you that so many of Baha'u'llah's writings are really about the transformation of individual lives. And this really was brought about by something that has come to be described as a twofold moral purpose. And this twofold moral purpose consists of, on the one hand, of empowering people to take charge of their own growth, their own advancement, their own development, and at the same time empowering them to contribute to the betterment of society. And each of these two sides actually enhances the other. And Baha'u'llah had somehow managed to couple these two things together, this idea of individual spiritual empowerment coupled with an orientation of service to humanity. And by coupling those two things together, he had unlocked human potential in ways that just astonished the people around him. But along with all his writings on the transformation of individual lives, individual character, individual potential, Baha'u'llah also addressed in his writings the need for the transformation of society and even of the institutions that govern society. So in one of his tablets, he once wrote, Atmo, can you just put up the next slide, please? He once wrote, "Is not the object of every revelation to effect a transformation in the whole character of mankind, a transformation that shall manifest itself both outwardly and inwardly, that shall affect both its inner life and external conditions?" And so embedded in Baha'u'llah's writings was this a kind of architectural blueprint for this unique, democratically functioning system of governance in which every single human being on the planet has a voice and is empowered to use that voice through a system of collective, consultative decision-making and electoral processes in order to have a say in how society is actually governed from the local level to the national level and even to the international planetary level. And what has always struck me about this system is that it's structured in such a way that it removes the possibility of absolute power ever falling into the hands of one individual. And Baha'u'llah wrote about this system, of which he claimed he was merely the deliverer. Antimo, can you put up the next slide, please? He said, "Mankind's ordered life hath been revolutionized through the agency of this unique, this wondrous system, the like of which mortal eyes have never witnessed." Well, in his will, Baha'u'llah had, in a sense, commissioned Abdu'l-Baha to begin the process of building this system, which over the decades and centuries to come would evolve and grow like a tree, rising up with its branches reaching out throughout the world. And so, after returning from his travels, Abdu'l-Baha began that process. He formulated a plan. And in that plan, Abdu'l-Baha outlined certain activities, certain grassroots activities, educational activities, social activities, service activities. He outlined these certain kinds of activities that would be needed in order to bring his father's system into being, starting at the very grassroots of society. And this plan, which he wrote on a series of postcards, became known simply as the Divine Plan. And Abdu'l-Baha's Divine Plan is really what the Baha'is of the world today are working on and collaborating with people of many different walks of life to bring into being universal peace, really beginning at the grassroots of our own communities. And I think that we actually see the essence of the Divine Plan beginning way back in the life of Baha'u'llah himself, when he and Nawab and the children were exiled to Baghdad. What did they do? They opened up the doors of their home, no matter how frugal that home may have been or how severe the difficulties they were facing. They opened up their home and they offered something to the people in the neighborhood around them. And that something was very simple. It was just love. Anyone who came to their door, rich and poor, prince and pauper, were welcomed through those doors, accepted and loved and encouraged. And that love flowed out from that home in Baghdad, and it flowed out across the neighborhood and through the city and throughout the whole empire of which they were prisoners. And eventually, by means of the travels of Abdu'l-Baha, that love reached all the way to the shores of distant continents. And so today, I wanted to finish today's episode by sharing with you a quote that was written, that comes from a letter addressed to the Baha'is of the world. And this was written by the Universal House of Justice, which is the international governing institution of the Baha'i faith and which functions today according to Baha'u'llah's system. And this is actually two quotes, but I think that they complement each other very well. So Antimo, can you put up the final slide, please? Ultimately, the power to transform the world is effected by love. Love originating from the relationship with the divine. Love ablaze among members of a community. Love extended without restriction to every human being. You are channels for this divine love. Let it flow through you to all who cross your path. Infuse it into every neighborhood and social space in which you move to build capacity to canalize the society-building power of Baha'u'llah's revelation. Every human being and every group of individuals, irrespective of whether they are counted among his followers, can take inspiration from his teachings, benefiting from whatever gems of wisdom and knowledge will aid them in addressing the challenges they face. And so from 1914 to 1918, as the world grappled with the greatest war it had ever known, Abdu'l-Baha set in motion a plan to build universal peace. And it all started on a handful of postcards. So if you've been fasting, I wish you, if you've been fasting, I wish you well with your fast. And I hope that you'll join me tomorrow for our final 20th episode of this musical journey. Thank you all for coming with me this far. It'll be the same time tomorrow as usual, and we will bring our story to a close. So for today's song, I'm going to sing some words of Abdu'l-Baha on today's theme. So I hope you enjoy it, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. Thanks for watching. This piece is called Love is the Secret. Know thou of a certainty that love is the secret of God's holy dispensation, the manifestation of the all-merciful, the fountain of spiritual outpourings. Love is the secret. Love is heaven's kindly light, the Holy Spirit's eternal breath. Love is the one means that ensureth true felicity, both in this world and the next. Love is the light that guideth in darkness, the living link that unites with man.